Memorial District Hospital. Got Jason Mayberry in from the emergency department. What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to get this thing to stay low.
Well, son, you just gave that a nice little shot. How about we do that?
Anyway, it works.
We're good.
That'll be fine.
We're good. All right. Well, anyway, good to have Jason in with us. It's been a while since we've seen each other. I was telling him it was an incident on a night, Friday night, the last time I'd seen him. I said, I thought you were trying to avoid me.
Not at all, not at all.
Anyway, it's good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anyway, well, we all know the hospitals with everything has had to make some major changes since last March. As everybody has, but the STEMI protocol is still a STEMI protocol. You still have got to be on top of this, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. COVID's changed a lot of things with the care of the patient, but still the end game's the same. We have to treat those patients that come in with those heart attacks quickly and efficiently. Our tertiary hospitals, the big level 1 centers, whether it be Missouri Baptist or UMMC, they've got protocols in place and things like that as far as dedicated cath labs for COVID positives, and so everybody still has to keep functioning regardless of what gets thrown at us.
So was the hospital ever put under strain because some of the larger hospitals did get full and had to turn some people away? Was that ever a strain on our hospital for emergency care?
Being rural has benefited us. It's hurt us also. Benefit, when all those major hospitals were under the big strain, or even the East Coast and West Coast, it hadn't quite made it here yet. We sat at 0 cases for a long time in Dent County. When the strain in the bigger metro areas started to lessen, then we started to kind of get our influx.
Right.
Has it ever shut down the hospital? I mean, we don't shut down the ER. We're there 24/7 regardless. It has challenged us, as a critical access hospital with staffing, with patient ratios, with the care that has to be given. So, I mean, there have been some difficulties, but, we keep our head up, we keep moving forward, and keep giving the care that our community needs.
I don't even know how to phrase this question because you know as well as I do, you guys have a set protocol for STEMI and everything goes through, and then all of a sudden COVID hits and you have to tweak it a little bit because of the COVID restrictions. But as we were talking before we came on the air, every day you guys are tweaking something. That has sometimes got to be a nightmare when you're trying to say, okay, today, this is our new protocol, this is our new protocol, this is our new protocol. Probably old hat now, but at first it had to be kind of challenging for everybody in the emergency department because you had to do it one way, back in March, and all of a sudden in April we're doing a different way. 1st of April, 2nd of April, we're doing a different way. May, we're doing different. June, by the time September got in, it was different. That's kind of pressure. It's not that you guys can't adapt. That's not it. It's just you can't get into that redundancy to where it becomes easier, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so, the STEMI protocol of itself has been around. We've been part of the Missouri Heart Lifeline Alliance with Missouri Baptist for 10, 15 years now. So that hasn't changed, but, going into the patient room has changed. There's some things that you have to know ahead of time to make sure that you're safe and protected.
Right.
And that starts with the 911 calls. The dispatchers now at the Sheriff's Department are screening patients for us. Hey, have you had a fever? Have you been around anybody that's tested positive? Have you tested positive? Are you in quarantine? They're getting all that information ahead of time. They're toning out the ambulance, so our ambulance has a pretty good idea going in. Is this person has this person in any kind of risk for being positive? If that's the report, then our people take precautions. They report that to us in the emergency department. So we're kind of ahead of the game before you get there via ambulance. Now, if you walk in the front door, that's a different story because that's all information that has to be gathered by the nurse. And sometimes in those time critical things that, some of those things aren't the first questions you ask.
Well, I know in my case, the treatment was first.
Right.
Get the treatment in, get all the tests done, get the chest x-rays. I mean, everything was done first before I ever had a COVID test.
Yeah.
And that was like the last thing on the agenda, but I was going to be admitted to the hospital, so they required to take a COVID test. And that's when all of a sudden I felt like, okay, everybody around me is in gowns and stuff. Now, that was before we ever had any results, but because I was being admitted, they couldn't take a chance.
Correct. Yeah. So I don't want to say one of the earlier cases in Dane County, but again, when it all started back in January, April-ish, we hadn't seen that much of it. So, right around that fall time is when we started to see our influx. Again, it was relatively new to us at that point in time. We didn't have the testing in-house. We were sending out to the state, waiting 2 to, I think at most 4 days for a result to come back. So, those are things that you have to, weigh out your risks and do what you have to do to care for these people. And, now we're able to test in-house, so we're getting results in 20 minutes and things like that. So we've come a long way. We still have a way to go. And when those new recommendations pop out, we always have to tweak things and make changes.
So let's talk a little bit about STEMI, because I know that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. STEMI is very, very vital in this area, simply because you're 2 hours away from any major hospital. I don't care what direction you go. You got Phelps Health, Texas County. They can help you a little bit. They're regional hospitals, but when you need a specialist, a good specialist, you're looking at Columbia, you're looking at Springfield, you're looking at St. Louis. 2 hours away. We are in that twilight zone.
Yeah, yeah.
Even Poplar Bluff's 2 hours away if you want to try and call that one.
Right.
All right, so for our hospital to not, if we weren't STEMI, people in our area could be in a big bunch of trouble if they had a need for STEMI.
Yeah. So the state of Missouri enacted some legislation a while ago. I want to say maybe going on 6 years now, for your time critical diagnosis designated hospitals. So we initially at Salem went with stroke because that we saw more stroke patients come in by ambulance than anything else. When the state of Missouri put this in, they made it laws that, if you're an ambulance district and you pick up a patient that is having stroke-like symptoms or having a STEMI, a heart attack, that you have to go to a designated hospital. So, that's where we chose. We had to go with stroke first because that encompasses all your weakness, your dizzies, your falls, all those things that would not be able to come to us. So we recently, a few years back, did the STEMI survey, and we were able to pass. But so our patients are able to come to us via ambulance now if need be, and not to get the initial care. We've got the clot busting medicines. We have all the alliances formed with the other hospitals that are able to take care of these patients in the end game with the cardiac caths and if need be open heart surgeries and things like that. So it's a huge benefit, to our community to be there.
Critical in our area to have that. But one of the things that our hospital does better than any other rural hospital that I know of is the amount of time it takes to get the diagnosis, to know if somebody is or isn't, needs special care, doesn't need special care, and get them en route to that next location if need be.
Yeah, so I just submitted our quarterly data and our 2020 data to a few other regional hospitals that we share information with. So, for 2020, our door to EKG time on average was 2 minutes. So from the time someone walks into the emergency department or comes in by ambulance with a complaint of chest pain or anything that a nurse assumes is going to be chest pain on those STEMI patients, our door to EKG time was 2 minutes. So within 2 minutes, we had a diagnosis of STEMI or not STEMI. If you were a STEMI, things obviously progress a whole lot faster than if you're not a STEMI. And our average door-to-door time, meaning the time they walk into our hospital until the time they leave our hospital, whether it be by ground transport to Phelps Health, like today, if the weather's bad and we're not able to fly, or if we're able to go by air and we're flying to one of the bigger cities, our average time's up 29 minutes. So a lot of things happen in those 29 minutes that involve a lot of people and a lot of coordinated effort to make those things happen.
We've called it a number of different things. I always call it coordinated confusion because it's crazy to watch what happens when that call comes in. But everybody has a specific job to do. They know what they have to do, and they have to do it in the proper order so that you get the right results, right?
Yeah, absolutely. From anybody that walks in, they get that EKG. We have cardiopulmonary that does that EKG. They immediately know to look at it. If they recognize a STEMI, they don't even talk to us. They just go and get it, and they say, hey, I'm faxing, it's a STEMI. Or if a nurse looks at it, same thing. If the doctor's in the room, they're looking at it too. So, those initial calls are made, and people just start moving once that page is overhead. The nurses know what they need to do, what medicines they need to be giving, and even the paperwork kind of switches over from a computer to a paper, and we start writing on that. And we've got, the paramedics or EMTs are making calls for transportation. One of them's calling Missouri Baptist to to a tertiary facility that's talking to a cardiologist or an ER physician getting acceptance. Our ER doc's making that legal doc-to-doc call, and then we're out the door. I mean, so it is quick. It's a little organized chaos, as we normally call it. And if you're there, you're probably wondering what's going on. If you're a family member, you're probably thinking these people are running around with a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, but everything's set in motion and things are going.
And you guys, and we talked about this earlier, you guys practice this all the time.
Yeah.
This is not we'll wait and see when it happens and see how well we do. This is something you guys do over and over and over again so that everybody knows exactly what the responsibilities are, exactly how important that is, and exactly how quickly it has to get done.
Yeah, we do mocks occasionally. We have a list. I have a list of hospital employees that are willing to be poked and prodded, and they'll just show up.
Some like it.
Yeah, they'll just show up to the emergency department at some random date and time, and they'll complain of chest pain, and I start the clock at that point in time. None of the staff know it's coming, and about halfway through it, they'll start to figure it out. Especially when I hand them a EKG that doesn't come off the EKG machine, and then they know, and they're going to town. We throw in some wrinkles here and there, and we try and we get every staff member at least once a year. Whether that's a random mock or during competencies, and I'd like to do it a whole lot more, but again, it takes a lot of people to do that. And when COVID first came around in 2020, you're pretty particular about who you let into your department, just because you don't want your staff to get ill.
Right.
And so we had to adjust accordingly and do a few things differently, but we're practicing as much as we can.
And the reason for the practice, and I think people will probably say, well, if you have this protocol in place, you just follow the list of items that go down the road. Not every person that comes in the hospital is going to show exactly the same symptoms. And they're not always going to have the same readings on that EKG. You've got to have that little variance in there that allows you a little bit of play, but you got to make decisions based on that play, don't you?
Yeah, depending on, where the occlusion is in the heart vessel, depends on what side of the heart it's affecting, anterior, posterior, lateral, septal, inferior, and certain things you can't do certain things with. I mean, you got to know, if this is an inferior MI and I give nitroglycerin to somebody, their blood pressure may tank. So it's constantly knowing what medicines you're giving, what they affect, how they affect it, and then being on your toes, because we all love textbook things and love to be able to walk down that list, but every STEMI that we have is going to be different in some way, shape, or form. We're going to get a wrinkle thrown at us, and the staff needs to know exactly how to respond to that in real time versus sitting there to look at a paper and say, okay, let me think. I need to do this now instead of this. They just need to be able to turn the switch and turn on a dime and go a different direction.
Trying to tell me a STEMI is a lot different than accounting and just straight
just a little bit. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But as you were mentioning, though, Jason, there's a lot of notes being taken at this time, collecting as much data as possible, because that still needs to be passed on to wherever the patient's going, correct?
Yeah, we still have to keep a record. I mean, that's the law. So we still have to have a record. The docs may only be in the room a few minutes, but they're going to know when your chest pain started, your medical history, if you've ever had it before, what's been done. The nurses obviously have to get your allergies, because we have to be careful of those things or other medicines that you're taking to make sure that we don't have any interactions. And yeah, eventually everything has to be passed on. At Salem, we've attempted to cut times in a way to where we get that acceptance at a bigger facility, and we get the patient either to the helipad or on the ambulance to go by ground if need be. Once that's over, then the nurses call and report. I mean, you got to think,
Sure.
We're going to either waste 5 minutes to 10 minutes while the patient's there trying to talk to a nurse, or we get them on the road. Either way, by ground 30 minutes to Rolla, by air 46 minutes to St. Louis, we're able to make that call after the patient's left and still pass on the same amount of information.
It is a pretty incredible thing to see, and it's even more incredible how it's all set up. I know, a long time ago when we first worked on the stroke protocol, and Tabitha Standfast was working on that, brought it to the board of directors, and she explained it at that meeting, and you could just see a bunch of white faces that had no clue how important this was going to be, and then move into STEMI, and continue to improve, and these critical services that our hospital provide. 10 years ago, they weren't there.
Right.
Not in an organized fashion like it is now.
Right. Yeah. Healthcare's changed all around, and the emergency care is being driven to be better.
Right.
A lot of times we are the primary care for patients.
Sure.
No insurance, or they can't get in with their primary care doctor, or there's a lack of doctors in their area. So we've had to streamline processes and make things run a little bit more efficiently than we have in the past.
And with the size of the hospital district, Jason, I don't think people really understand how big the Salem Hospital District is. And to try and access some of the roads that we know, like today, if you had to go on a back road near Bunker, it may take you a while to get down there and back.
Sure.
Right?
On a good day, those runs to Bunker, our EMS crew, it may take them 40 minutes to get down there, and that's on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've got to assess the patient, get any kind of intervention done that they're going to do, and then get on the road and either get back to the hospital or find an aircraft and meet them somewhere. So, I mean, you are looking at 2 to possibly 3 hours of, figuring out and getting everything done that they need to get done before they get to a hospital. Back roads are the same way. How many times do those people live 11 miles down County Road, such and such, and take a left at the tree that was split by lightning, and do this and do that? And
30 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, it takes some time to get there, and the roads aren't always the greatest. So, getting in and getting to people it can be a challenge for our EMS, absolutely.
It's wonderful to have that exclusion where you live, where you're away from people and you've got your land and everything else. But, I remember hearing a lot of different things on 911 calls from Sligo and things of that nature, where it would be rerouted to possibly to Steelville instead of coming to Salem, and they're trying to get a hold of Salem and they're not getting them, and there's nightmares like that. And unfortunately, they can still occur. Hopefully it doesn't when you do it, but do realize if something's not happening, just because you call in 5 minutes, hospital staff's not going to be there in 5 minutes. If you live, down by Sligo, it just can't be there,
Sure.
But they will get there as quickly as possible. Now, if you're not sure you got it to the right dispatcher, you can always call Dane County, or you can always call follow up later and say, did you get my 911 call, or did it get rerouted?
Right.
I actually had a 911 call from my house get rerouted to Phelps County to Newburgh.
Wow.
For a fire. There was a small fire right behind the fire station. That's where our house is. And they said it'd be 45 minutes to an hour before they got there. I said, really? Just throw me a hose. And they're, no, you don't know. No, we didn't know it got rerouted to Phelps County. They were looking for our address, and the only address that we had was in Newburgh. And they started to go down to Newburgh, and I said, why did 911 go to Phelps County? We did 27 tests with our local 911 to find out why. 3 times it still went to Phelps County.
Huh.
They finally figured it out. There's some little switch in there that if there were 3 911 calls at one time, it automatically diverted to Phelps County.
Rolled one over.
Rolled it over, but should roll over to the sheriff's department.
Sure.
Not to Phelps County, anyway. But it did. And,
Crazy.
But you don't know that. I mean, and it was nobody's fault. It's just the way the system was designed. Usually that happens in major cities or something like that. That's where this equipment's usually used that we got from CenturyLink. And so it just would roll over to their next number, which would be, a municipality. Well,
sure.
In St. Louis City or county, municipality is 4 minutes away. In Dane County, your municipality is
it's a while.
40 minutes away.
Sure.
So, and then you don't know if they even have an idea where you're at. So, anyway, but it can be a little bit hairy.
Absolutely.
So the staff does a tremendous job, but I did want to make people aware. We got weather like this. It is going to take extra time to get to you because they need to be safe in their travels.
Sure, yeah, and they've got protocols in as far as transfers and things. Even if you're at the hospital and your doctor wants you in another city or another hospital, if the roads are that bad, we obviously need to keep our staff's safety and your safety as a patient in the back of a moving ambulance. And, if the roads are bad, you might not go. You might get housed with us for a while until the roads improve, or, it's just one of those things of everybody has to take into account safety.
Or the skies clear out a little bit, and you can
Sure.
get them out. While I have you here, and since you're an emergency department kind of guy, that's kind of like your forte.
That's it, yeah.
Here we are getting some snow, and I know this is not a heavy snow, but we do know we have not had a lot of snow in Dent County in the last basically 5 years. We've had a couple little ones, and this is not going to be a big one either. But we do want to remind people, if you are not in good physical shape, do not try and go shovel snow.
Sure. Just be careful. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you put a lot of strain.
We all know it's cold outside, right? So we put on 3 layers, get out there, and after about 5 shovels, we're losing 1 layer.
Yep.
After about 10 more shovels, we're losing another. And your heart is pumping hard. Things can change quickly, can't they?
Yeah, shoveling snow is definitely a strenuous activity, especially if you're not in any kind of good health. So you just have to be very mindful, know your body, know your limits. If you do need to take small breaks, and, you don't have to clear your whole driveway in one fell swoop. If you're not going anywhere, you just take your time and do little sections at a time. But definitely know your limits. Be safe in what you do.
Now, we haven't really had that in Dent County for a while, so you haven't had that issue. But hypothermia can also be an issue this time of year, especially when it gets wet out there. We've had, unfortunately, we get these rains here in January lately. All of a sudden we're getting monsoons where flash flooding could occur, take you off the road. If you get in that water, Jason, I mean, your body temperature just drops drastically when you hit cold water like that, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and especially if you, those wet clothes, obviously, they make you colder. I'm not saying a strip down by any means, because obviously we know that's not good for us either. But yeah, once your clothes get wet, it definitely impedes your body's ability to warm itself back up. I don't know how quick the body temperature drops per water degree temperature, but it's quick, and it can be fatal fast. Absolutely,
it's like 4 to 5 degrees every 6 minutes or something like that, but it's fast.
Yeah.
And now, I was reading. We had a little thing from Red Cross that came in that if you do get submerged at this time of year, when you get out, keep your clothes on. Unless you can get out of them quickly and replace them with warm, dry clothes, but try and get a blanket around you so you can hold the heat of your body back in. There's still heat in your body.
Sure.
It just has to re-amplify, and more than likely you've got some pretty good adrenaline going. You hit that kind of water, because it's going to be eye-opening.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. The bad thing about cold water like that, if you really get hit with a quick sizzle, is that it can actually numb your arms to where you have no strength.
Well, your body's smart. Your brain knows that it needs the most oxygen, rich blood to keep everything going. So once you do get colder, your body will start to shunt that blood mainly to the brain and heart. So your core will stay warm. Yes, your extremities, as important as our hands are to us, your body know they're not vital for life. So they'll shut down the flow that way and make sure that the core and the brain are continuously perfused in order to sustain life and to keep function going.
So you lose the feeling in your arms and legs, and if you have to try and get out of that water situation, it really becomes hard because you're not sure you're getting anywhere.
Absolutely, yeah.
So be very, very careful. It's that time of year, and I know most people aren't going to experience any of that. I hope you never experience any of that, especially with snow shoveling or anything of that nature, or getting stuck in ice cold water. But 2 people, I think, died in Lake of the Ozarks the other day. They were out fishing, capsized. They basically froze to death. Hypothermia killed them. You can't get in that kind of water at 36 degrees in the middle of the Lake of the Ozarks, and there's just not a lot of boat traffic out there. You're not going to get pulled out of that water in time.
Yeah, that's miserable.
Yeah, and
Goodness
so
gracious.
it'd be a very, very, very difficult thing to, you're out there to enjoy yourself, and the next thing you know, you get capsized for whatever reason, and there's not a lot of hope. Even with a personal flotation device, you'll be on top of the water, but you got to get back in that boat or get out of that water as quickly as possible.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
We want to keep everybody safe as we can. Hey, buddy, it's always good talking to you.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
And you got anything else you need to inform us about today?
Oh, not that I'm aware of. Just be safe out there. The roads are
that
still
you're
covered. It was a slow drive from the hospital here. I'm sure it'll be a slow drive back, but just be safe.
By this afternoon, it should all be pretty good.
Well,
they'll get the plows out and
Absolutely.
stuff, and this will all clear off here. Actually, looks like right now by about 11:30 to 12 o'clock, most everything will be through. So,
well, that's
you know,
good.
we should be good to go. Well, we just don't see snow much anymore.
Not
It used
much.
to be years ago, a little snow like this, it was nothing. Now, since we don't get snow very often, we don't travel in it very often, we just don't remember. And there's some children who've never driven in the snow ever.
Absolutely.
That's always an interesting first time when you go to stop and you don't.
Yeah, slide a little sideways. Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully it's not where anybody else is
Sure.
or into back of somebody. But, buddy, I always appreciate you coming in.
Yep.
And again, I don't know if I had a chance to thank you and what you did for me and back in September. I do appreciate that and all the great work that our hospital did. And I've talked to a lot of the staff since then and just said, it's pretty amazing. You don't know what goes on till you have to go through it.
Yeah, we're glad you're well. Always sad when it's someone that you know.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
Dr. Al told me, he goes, Chief, you got to get better. I mean, that's just the way it was. So, I'm not going to argue, Dr.
Sure.
Al.
Yeah, I hear you.
He wasn't in the mood to take any argument.
Fair enough.
Very good. Jason, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Jason
you.
Mayberry from the emergency department. And don't forget, this hospital has a great STEMI program, and you can always count on all the great work that Jason has done and Tabitha has done in the past, and they continue to excel at it. So if you have that need, you can be very comfortable that Salem Hospital is one of the best at STEMI. For a hospital its size, one of the best. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Keep it here. Civic Happenings are next.
Hello, this is Kathy Haynes, Director of Infection Prevention, Employee Health, and Education here at Salem Memorial District